You've carried a weight that wasn't yours, a quiet burden, the silent expectations, the unspoken demands. You called it empathy, loyalty, love. But beneath the surface, it felt like a slow fading, a quiet erosion of self, piece by piece. What if the peace you desperately sought in others was always waiting for you within? Most of us walk this path, unaware. Imagine a vast, echoing room. You moving through it, trying to keep every face smiling, every shadow appeased, every silence filled. You give your best, your kindness, your gentle patience, until only an echo remains, a reflection shaped purely by what others demand. You tell yourself this is virtue, this is care. Yet, a quiet exhaustion settles deep within your chest, a weight no sleep can ever lift. This is not peace. This is the heavy cost of trying to please a world that never asked for your sacrifice. Have you ever noticed some spirits drain yours without a single word? A friend who never returns the call, a relative who finds only fault, a colleague whose smile hides a sharpened tongue. You replay conversations, a silent interrogation. Did I err? Could I have done more? Was I, perhaps, the problem? But you were not. The problem is that you handed over your peace to those who never earned such a sacred privilege. You gave them access to your deepest feelings, as if their fleeting approval could define your infinite worth. Epictetus understood this. He said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, remember that your mind was complicit. No one can steal your calm, not unless you open the door yourself." Now, pause. Imagine this. You stand before a mirror, and you see not just your reflection, but every version of you that tried to be liked, the one who softened their voice so others might feel tall, the one who smiled, wanting desperately to walk away, the one who dimmed their own brilliant light so no one else would feel overshadowed. Each version stands there, waiting to be seen, to be released. This is an awakening. A quiet whisper within, "I have cared enough." Seneca, with ancient wisdom, warned, "He who seeks the approval of many ends up a slave to all." You can spend a lifetime trying to fit into shapes never meant for you, and still someone will find fault. You could pour out your heart, act with boundless kindness, and still be utterly misunderstood. This is the nature of the world. People project their own inner chaos onto the calm they cannot comprehend. The Stoics knew this truth. The opinions of others, they belong to them, not to you. They are like the wind. You feel them brush your skin, but you don't have to let them carry you away. I knew a man. He spent years chasing his father's respect. He worked tirelessly, built a career, did everything right, yet the old man's approval never came. One day, exhausted, he simply stopped trying. Not from bitterness, but from a sudden, profound realization. The peace he was chasing was his own reflection, waiting to be seen from within. That day, he walked lighter. The world had not changed. He had. The truth is this: when you live for applause, you become addicted to noise. Every cheer lifts you. Every silence breaks you. But the one who lives by Stoic virtue learns a higher freedom, to act from principle, not from praise. Marcus Aurelius, in his Quiet Wisdom, once wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." This is the contradiction of the human heart. You must decide, whose voice will you live by? The moment you stop trying to make everyone happy, you start seeing yourself clearly. The fog lifts. You no longer edit your personality to fit their comfort. You no longer trade your authenticity for fleeting acceptance. You begin to understand real love, real friendship, real respect. They never demand you shrink to be tolerated. The ones who truly value you will meet you as you are, not as they imagine you should be. The rest, let them fall away. So stop chasing approval. Stop seeking validation from those who haven't even learned to validate themselves. The opinions of the crowd are fleeting, but the peace of self-respect endures. When you let go of the need to be liked, you make space for something greater, to be whole. This is where the true journey begins. The day you stop caring how others see you is the day you start seeing yourself. The world may still talk, but their words will echo in the distance, powerless against your silence. Because a calm mind, anchored in truth, no longer bends for applause. It simply stands, steady, still, and free. Sometimes compassion itself can wound us. You try to be the anchor in other people's storms, holding on until your own hands bleed. You carry their chaos on your back, believing love meant saving them from themselves. Every time they cried, you appeared. Every time they promised to change, you believed. And every time they returned to old patterns, you blamed yourself for not being enough. But here is a truth few are ready to hear. You cannot rescue someone who is comfortable drowning. Imagine pulling a man from a river, only to watch him dive back in moments later. You call it loyalty, empathy, friendship, but the Stoics, they would call it attachment to illusion. Epictetus taught, when you desire to save what is not in your power, you destroy both yourself and your peace. The weight you carry is not noble when it robs you of clarity. There is a difference between helping and becoming a hostage to someone else's suffering. And you know this. You have felt the fatigue, not from work, but from emotional overextension. The kind that leaves your soul empty and your heart restless. There's a story of a teacher who tried to lift every student from failure. He stayed late, sacrificed sleep, poured himself into their lessons. Yet, the same faces returned with the same excuses. One evening, he sat alone in the quiet classroom and finally understood. His duty was to teach, not to drag others toward the will to learn. A man can only carry another so far before he sinks too. Seneca might have said, "The one who helps all loses himself in all." That realization, it does not make you cold. It makes you wise. So ask yourself, how many times have you mistaken rescuing for love? How many times have you confused sacrifice with virtue? There is a dangerous pride hidden in constant giving. The belief that your effort can rewrite another's destiny. But no matter how much you pour, an empty vessel remains empty. until it decides to be filled. You cannot heal those who still cling to their pain like a familiar friend. You can guide, but not walk for them. You can show the flame, but not force them to see its light. The Stoics understood that freedom begins where control ends. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Each man's life is dyed the color of his own thoughts. You cannot repaint another soul without first letting them hold the brush. Every time you rescue someone from their own consequences, you interrupt the lesson the universe has placed before them. And when lessons are skipped, suffering repeats. To truly love someone is not to shield them from pain, but to allow them to meet it, to stand beside them, not in front of them. There comes a moment when you wake and realize you've been pouring from a well that's gone dry. You've given your listening, your energy, your peace, and in return, silence. The very people you would have fought for won't even notice your absence. That is when the inner voice of wisdom whispers, "This is not strength. This is surrender of the wrong kind." Stoic compassion is not endless sacrifice. It is measured love, steady, firm, and bounded by reason. You are not cruel for stepping back. You are preserving the only instrument through which you can still do good, yourself. If you continue to give without discernment, you trade your serenity for someone else's stagnation. And when you are drained, no one benefits. The Stoic does not harden his heart, he tempers it. He helps where help can grow, and steps away where help becomes enabling. Because real aid demands balance, mercy guided by discipline, empathy guided by wisdom. So let them walk their own path, even if it's lined with mistakes. Let them fall if falling is what teaches them to rise. You are not the savior of every soul. You are responsible for your own. Offer a hand, not a lifeboat. Offer truth, not rescue. That is how a Stoic loves, with courage to care and a strength to let go. And when you finally stop carrying what was never yours to bear, you will feel something you may have forgotten long ago. The lightness of peace returning to your own shoulders. The mask of compassion can sometimes hide distraction. You begin by caring, a noble act. You want to be thoughtful, aware, kind. But somewhere along the way, that care turns into noise. You start scanning the room for approval instead of direction. You look outward when your focus was meant to face inward. Every glance, every opinion, every silence, it becomes a mirror you are trapped inside. You check who noticed your effort, who stayed quiet, who withdrew. And without realizing it, your peace becomes a public square, open for everyone's judgment to walk through. Now imagine a traveler walking a mountain path, focused, steady, when suddenly voices from the valley start calling his name. Some praise, some mock, some question. He pauses to listen, and each pause makes the mountain steeper. That is what happens when you care too much about what others think. Every opinion becomes a stone in your pocket. Every glance, another weight on your back. The Stoics warned us about this long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, quote, It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. When you let external noise steer your mind, you stop living deliberately. You start performing life, instead of living it. I knew a man who would change his tone, his posture, even his dreams, depending on who stood before him. Around his family, he was obedient. Around his friends, confident. Around strangers, silent. He wore masks so often, he forgot what his real face looked like. And one night, he confessed quietly, "I am exhausted. I do not even know what is truly mine anymore." That is the hidden cost of caring too much. You lose the thread that connects you to yourself. Epictetus taught that freedom is the right to choose whose opinions matter. When you grant that right to everyone, you lose sovereignty over your own mind. Most people aren't even watching you. They are too busy worrying about their own insecurities. Those who criticize loudly are often battling their own unseen chaos. Their judgment says more about their inner storms than your worth. Yet still, you keep building a temple in your mind to host their thoughts. You decorate it with doubt, furnish it with fear, and call it humility. But it is not humility, it is captivity. The Stoic life demands attention, not obsession, focus, not fixation. Every time you wonder what others think, you move an inch away from your purpose. Progress is quiet, but ego is loud. Ask yourself, who are you living for? Whose applause dictates your pace? The moment you start building your life on the opinions of others, you abandon the only foundation that can hold you, your own reason. Seneca said, "He who follows another not only loses his way, but loses himself." To live freely, you must be willing to disappoint. Those who misunderstand your silence, there is a kind of peace that comes the day you stop explaining. You stop rehearsing conversations in your mind. You stop chasing validation from those who can't even validate their own choices. You begin to understand not every silence is rejection. Sometimes it is just space. And in that space, you can breathe again. The opinions fade, the noise settles, and what remains is clarity. The rare kind that only comes from detachment. From here, you walk differently. Your step gains weight. Your words slow down. You start living for truth, not applause. You realize that people's approval is like the wind. It changes direction with every season. You cannot build your peace on something so fickle. The Stoic builds his house on inner strength, not on shifting noise. One who minds his own progress becomes unstoppable because his compass no longer points to the crowd. It points within. So when the voices grow loud again, let them. Don't fight them. Don't feed them. Just keep walking. Because the moment you stop caring about what others think, you reclaim your sight. You see your purpose clearly. You act without hesitation. And that is when the world, for the first time, begins to take you seriously. Not because you begged for its attention, but because you no longer need it. Your peace begins to depend on discernment. You've given so much of yourself to others that you've forgotten not everyone deserves access to your spirit. You offer your time, your kindness, your patience. And what do some people do? They take. They take until there is nothing left but silence in your chest and questions in your mind. You wonder why they don't show up when you need them, why they vanish when life turns dark. You tell yourself they care, just in their own way, but the truth is colder and simpler. Some people love what you give. not who you are. Now imagine a fire in an open field. At first, it burns bright, giving warmth to everyone who passes by. But slowly, the crowd grows. They hold their hands out for the heat. They stand close. They take. And none bring wood to keep it alive. By the end, the flame shrinks into smoke. That is what happens when you give your energy to those who only stand near for their comfort, not for your growth. Seneca warned, "Associate with those who may make you better, and welcome those whom you can make better. Anything else is waste disguised as duty." I met a woman who was everyone's savior, always answering calls, fixing problems, filling gaps. Her kindness was her pride, until it became her prison. One day, she confessed, she no longer recognized her own voice. She'd become an echo of other people's needs. That is the quiet tragedy of overgiving. When your light feeds others but leaves you in the dark. The Stoics understood this well. They taught that your energy, like your virtue, is sacred. You guard it not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. A river that gives without restraint soon runs dry. There is a painful lesson in realizing not everyone is meant to walk beside you. Some are lessons, not companions. Some weights you were never meant to carry. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." The same is true of company. You become dyed by the energy you keep. When you surround yourself with those who complain, who take, who drain, your own clarity fades. And no matter how strong your heart, it cannot stay pure in a place where chaos feeds freely. You must learn to step back, not out of pride, but preservation. Ask yourself, who truly matches your effort? Who listens when you speak without needing anything in return? Who respects your silence as much as your giving? Those people are rare. Hold them close. But for the rest, let distance be your act of love. The Stoics' compassion is not endless exposure. It is deliberate generosity, given with understanding, not guilt. You can care deeply without making yourself a well for those who never bring a cup. When you withdraw your energy from those who abuse it, you make room for something better. People who bring calm instead of confusion, honesty instead of flattery, presence instead of performance. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth to the ungrateful, you discover a quiet power, your own self-respect. That is where real peace begins. Epictetus reminded his students, "You become what you give your attention to." Give your attention to those who elevate you, not those who empty you. Give your care to those who return it, not because you demand repayment, but because harmony demands balance. You are not a reservoir for endless taking. You are a source meant to flow toward meaning. So protect your energy like a sacred flame. Guard it from those who mistake kindness for weakness. Don't waste your strength trying to convince the blind of your worth. Your time is the currency of your soul. Spend it with intention. When you do, you will find that solitude, once feared, becomes sanctuary. And from that stillness, the right people will appear. Those who don't drain your fire, but help it burn brighter. Because when you learn who deserves your energy, you no longer chase peace. You become it. A quieter struggle begins between your heart and your fear. You said yes when your soul whispered no. You smiled when your spirit trembled. You've played peacekeeper in wars that were never yours to fight. You tell yourself it's kindness, that it's maturity, that it's the right thing to do. But deep down, you know the truth. It isn't kindness, it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being seen as difficult. But the Stoics would tell you, fear disguised as kindness is still fear. And anything born from fear can never lead to peace. Now imagine standing in a room where every wall echoes with expectations. Everyone wants something from you. Approval, agreement, validation. You move carefully, watching every word, softening every truth. And with each compromise, you disappear a little more. This is the silent erosion of the self. A slow fading beneath the weight of wanting to belong. Seneca once said, "He who seeks to please all will please none, least of all himself." When you live to avoid rejection, you reject yourself first. You cannot stand firm on borrowed approval. There was a man I knew who could not bear the thought of disappointing anyone. He bent himself into shapes that weren't his, agreed to things that hollowed him out, and silenced his instincts for the comfort of others. He told me, "I am afraid that if I stop being agreeable, people will leave." And one day, when he finally spoke his truth, they did leave, some in anger, others in silence. But something strange happened after that. He didn't collapse. He stood taller. He slept better. He realized that losing those who only stayed for convenience wasn't loss at all. It was clarity. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. You cannot master yourself while chained to the opinions of others. Every yes born from fear binds you tighter. Every silence that swallows your truth becomes another link in that chain. You start mistaking peace for avoidance. But peace built on suppression isn't peace. It's paralysis. The Stoics believed that courage is not the absence of fear, but the act of choosing virtue in spite of it. Courage is saying no when your heart is heavy. Courage is speaking when silence would be easier. Courage is standing firm when the crowd moves the other way. Ask yourself, what are you afraid of losing? Their approval or your integrity? Because one of them must go. You can't walk toward your higher purpose while carrying everyone's expectations on your back. Some people are not meant to continue the journey with you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." Every time you silence yourself to stay liked, you die a little in spirit. You delay the life that is waiting on the other side of your authenticity. When you stop performing, the wrong people will drift away. Let them. The ones who belong will not be frightened by your truth. They will not ask you to shrink for their comfort. They will love you for your stillness, your strength, your honesty. Because authenticity repels the shallow and draws the real. There will come a moment when your voice shakes and your hands tremble, but you speak anyway. And that moment will mark the birth of your freedom. You'll learn that it was never rejection you feared. It was transformation. Once you stop living for approval, something extraordinary happens. You stop waiting for permission to exist. You no longer chase belonging because you have finally returned home to yourself. So speak your truth, even when it trembles. Stand your ground, even when it feels lonely. Let go of fitting in when you were meant to stand apart. The moment you choose truth over comfort, you cross the invisible line between fear and freedom. And that is where the Stoic stands, not above the noise, but unmoved by it. The noise fades. The value of silence reveals itself. You've spent years reacting, explaining, defending, giving away your peace one response at a time. You cared about every rumor, every opinion, every passing word that questioned your worth. You wanted to be understood, to be seen in the right light, to prove you meant well. But there comes a moment when you realize that peace doesn't live in explanations. It lives in restraint. It lives in the quiet power of not needing to be everywhere, not needing to respond to everything, not needing to prove a thing. Now imagine a calm lake at dawn. The world around it is loud, wind, birds, echoes of life, yet the surface remains still. That is the kind of strength Stoicism speaks of. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are disturbed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. You suffer not because of the noise, but because you invite it into your mind." The wise don't waste their calm on what's outside their control. They protect their peace like warriors guarding a fortress. Because when the walls fall, everything else follows. I knew a man who couldn't bear silence. He answered every message the moment it came, defended himself against every misunderstanding, argued every rumor that questioned his name. His days were full of words, but his nights were empty. He mistook busyness for meaning, and when peace finally called, he couldn't hear it anymore. One evening, exhausted, he deleted his social accounts, stopped explaining, and began to walk every morning without his phone. The world didn't collapse. In fact, it barely noticed. But inside, something shifted. The noise fell away, and for the first time in years, he could hear his own thoughts again. That was the day he learned peace is not the reward for winning every argument. It's the victory of choosing none. The Stoics never chased the illusion of control. They knew that life's storms were constant. Words, opinions, circumstances beyond reach. Their strength was built on one truth. We cannot choose what happens to us, but we can choose how we respond. Seneca warned that the mind that reacts to everything becomes its own tormentor. That's why the Stoic practice of silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Silence turns chaos into clarity. Distance turns emotion into perspective. Boundaries turn exhaustion into strength. You don't owe your time to everyone who demands it. You don't owe your peace to those who thrive on conflict. You don't owe explanations to those determined to misunderstand you. You owe yourself calm. You owe yourself focus. You owe yourself the grace of choosing stillness over struggle. Every call you don't answer, every rumor you don't chase, every message you let fade without reply, these are acts of quiet rebellion. You are no longer feeding the noise that starves your soul. Peace doesn't mean a life without problems. It means a life built on boundaries. It's knowing when to walk away, when to be silent, when to let people's opinions dissolve into air. Sometimes the most powerful response is none. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming better. Sometimes The truest closure is moving forward without a word. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, "Today I will meet with interference, ingratitude, arrogance, deceit, jealousy, and selfishness. Yet they cannot harm me." That's the creed of the calm mind. It's not about avoiding the storm. It's about standing within it, unshaken. When you stop giving energy to what doesn't deserve it, you begin to see how little power those things ever had. So protect your peace with the discipline of a Stoic warrior. Guard it with silence, defend it with distance, preserve it with choice. Because once you lose your peace, you lose yourself. And if you keep listening to every voice around you, you'll never hear the one within. Step back, breathe, let the noise pass like wind across a mountain. It cannot touch what is rooted deep. Focus only on what endures, your purpose, your virtue, your inner stillness. Everything else will fade with time. But peace, real peace, is eternal if you learn to protect it. Unseen strength begins to take form. There are moments in life when you feel invisible, when your effort goes unnoticed, your kindness unreturned, your loyalty unanswered. You give, and it echoes into silence. You stay, and others leave. You keep carrying people in your heart who have long forgotten your name. It's a quiet kind of pain, the kind that doesn't shout, but sits inside you, heavy and patient. Yet here is the truth. The Stoics understood. Nothing you do with virtue is ever wasted, even if the world doesn't witness it. Imagine a craftsman working alone through the night, carving something beautiful that no one may ever see. He doesn't rush, doesn't boast, doesn't seek an audience. He works because excellence is its own reward. That's how life often unfolds. You labor in silence. You endure without recognition. And yet, the universe, in its perfect order, keeps its balance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The world is change, and life is opinion. What others think of your worth does not define the value of your work." The Stoic finds comfort in knowing that unseen effort still matters, because virtue exists for its own sake, not for applause. I knew a man who felt forgotten by the people he'd helped most, stayed loyal in their storms, sea a raft with fear, and yet, when his own struggles came, the silence was deafening. One day he told me, "Maybe I am not meant to be seen," but time revealed something deeper. His quiet endurance built a kind of strength the ungrateful could never touch. Months later, opportunities came. From unexpected places, friendships formed from sincerity, and he understood what the Stoics meant by divine reason. Logos, that invisible order guiding all things. What felt like rejection was redirection. What felt like loss was protection. Epictetus taught that everything has two handles, one by which it may be borne, another by which it cannot. When people leave, you can grab the handle of resentment or the handle of understanding. One makes you bitter, the other makes you wise. Sometimes what looks like betrayal is simply nature's way of clearing space for the right souls to arrive. Seneca reminded us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The pain of being unseen often comes from the stories we tell ourselves that we are unworthy, unimportant, forgotten. But the truth is simpler. People see only as far as their own awareness allows. Their blindness is not your measure. There is an order in the world the Stoics called providence, the quiet intelligence of fate. It removes what hinders, even when our hearts resist. The friend who left, the door that closed, the silence that hurt. Each was a necessary subtraction. The Stoic does not cling to what departs. He trusts the flow of reason through all things. When you stop chasing those who walked away, you create room for those meant to walk beside you. When you stop worrying about being recognized, you begin to live in alignment with your own nature. The peace that follows is unlike any other. You no longer depend on others to validate your worth. You no longer grieve every departure. You begin to see rejection as refinement, polishing your character, sharpening your clarity. And suddenly, the stillness you feared becomes sacred. You understand that the universe keeps a perfect account, even when human eyes do not. So let go of what is not yours to fix. Let go of those who could not stay. Let go of caring about the things already handled by the greater order of nature. The Stoic trusts that what is meant for him will meet him, and what is not will pass. Every loss carries within it an unseen favor, and every silence holds a lesson. When you accept that, you no longer walk in bitterness, you walk in quiet faith. From here, gratitude replaces grievance. You realize that peace was never lost. It was simply waiting for you to stop holding on to what was gone, because the universe always sees what others don't, and when you align with it, you find something deeper than approval. You find serenity. Strength takes a quieter form, not in holding tighter, but in learning to release. The world often mistakes caring less for indifference, but the Stoics knew better. Caring less doesn't mean your heart hardens. It means it becomes wise. It means you stop bleeding for causes that do not grow you. It means you stop handing your peace to people who mistake your gentleness for weakness. It means you choose your battles as a philosopher would, with clarity, not emotion. Let go of the urge to fix everyone's pain. Let go of the compulsion to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Let go of caring about opinions that add nothing to your peace. You are not selfish for guarding your energy. You are not unkind for stepping back. You are simply becoming who you were meant to be. Someone who no longer confuses suffering with love. Someone who no longer trades calm for company. Someone who knows that self-respect is not separation from the world, but alignment with your highest nature. Take a breath. Return to yourself. Stand steady in what's true. No more overthinking. No more pleasing. No more chasing what steals your serenity. Care deeply, but wisely, for your purpose, your family, your growth, your peace. The Stoics called it eudaimonia, the state of a soul in harmony with itself. And harmony cannot be found in the crowd. It begins the moment you withdraw from noise and return to the stillness within. This is where the journey ends and begins again, with self-respect as the compass, peace as the path, and reason as your only master. Because when you release what isn't yours, you begin to live what always was.